All right, so the first video we're looking at is about transition services. She talks about how to sort of the transition plan that happens with special education students. It's part of their IEP, and it kind of gets them on the road path to the real world or to college. It kind of is their plans from school to college. And then, right at the beginning of that video, at 8 seconds, after kind of introducing this idea of a transition plan, she signs services what? Okay, transition services what? And then she goes on to explain what transition services are. So what are some ways we can interpret that sentence? Transition service what? Hi Jennifer, we just got started. And the first thing we are discussing is in the transition video that I sent links to, or I'll link to. At 8 seconds in that video, she signs transition service what? So what are some ways, and then after that she goes right into explaining what transition services are. So just kind of spitball, what are some ways we can voice just that part about transition service what? Any ideas?
Well, if you have enough lag time, you could just start at transition services are and then go right into her explanation instead of setting up as a rhetorical or a comment.
Yeah, you absolutely could. So after her intro, you could voice it as transition services are, and then just go right into it, right into her explanation. Okay. Does anybody feel like you would be compelled to do it a different way?
The only other thing that I would say is if I was maybe didn't have as much lag time, I would probably say I'm going in this video, I will explain what transition services are. Okay, so you could do that. So do you feel like, so we discussed saying transition services are, and then going right into it. Okay, that was one way we discussed. Or we could do, in this video, I will discuss what transition services are. Does anybody think that those two options are not equivalent? Okay. Keep thinking. Okay, I think they're equivalent. I mean, my thought is I think they're equivalent. I think the meaning is there. I think, does anybody think one sounds more natural than the other?
First one.
You think the first one sounds more natural? I think the first one sounds more natural too. Yeah. I do think though that in most cases, most of us probably are not with having, you know, an 8-second lag time. And so we may end up having to do something like that. Now, so if we voice it as transition, in this video, I'll be discussing what transition services are, or I'll be discussing what transition services are, okay? I think that's a fine interpretation. Even though we all kind of agree that the first one sounds more natural, I think that it's still equivalent to say it the second way. One thing we would want to avoid is something like, it's not necessarily wrong, but a lesser option is saying something like, transition services are what? Or let me, or I'll expand on what transition services are, or something like that. You want to avoid that. The last one wasn't a rhetorical question, but you want to avoid putting the rhetorical in there, okay? Oftentimes we see that rhetorical question, we want to put that in there. Does anybody have any other thoughts on how you could voice that first sentence? Okay, I'm gonna jump right in then. I'm gonna try it with you guys. I normally ask people to mute their videos, but because I'm gonna be very regularly asking for feedback, I'm gonna try it without muting, and we'll see how if it ends up being an issue. Okay, and the rest of you can unmute yours too. Okay, in the same video, in the transition services video at 45 seconds, and I hope everybody had a chance to watch both of these videos. At 45 seconds, I'm gonna try my best to convey this gloss clearly. So she's in the middle of talking about transition services, and she says, okay, so I don't know, was that clear? Was it kind of clear? Okay. Those of you I know that have worked on this for the past week, I know you're really familiar with the video already, but once again, I'll sign it one more time, and she's talking about what these transition services have to include. And what she signs is, and now I see why we do need to mute it. Go ahead and mute your screens, everybody. You're gonna see a microphone. If you hover over the screen, move your mouse around, you'll see a microphone. Click the microphone until a line goes over it. And I'll sign it again here. So she signs, and I'll sort of gloss it too, just in case it's not clear. So she says, services include do, which means what? Services include what? Student, their, vision, they, success, enter college, work, world, what, their, vision. Okay, that's what she signs. Okay, so it's a lot of signs, but I want you to think about it, and we just talked about this perfect world of lag time, okay? So we're all working on, myself included, working on getting our lag time to back up. And we see what happens when we have a close lag time, right? We see that we end up, if we're too close, then we end up having to just kind of see a sign, say a sign, sign words. That's what ends up happening. Rather than seeing all of those signs that she put into this actually fairly simple concept and then putting it out in a nice English phrase, okay? So any ideas what she means by that? Any thoughts coming to your mind on what she means by that, and where we can kind of start with voicing it?
Well, when I first saw it, I was a little bit confused because I wasn't sure exactly what transition services were. Like, is this a program? Is this somewhere they go to? Is this something that's required by their school? What exactly is Is it just like a paper they fill out? So that's why I was kind of confused as to what she meant by the services include. So I really had absolutely no idea like where to go from there.
Yeah.
So I think when I actually tried to voice it, I said something along the lines of, we will look at what the students' goals are for college and for preparing for the real world, or something like that.
Okay, yeah, that's essentially what she's talking about. So it seems to me that based on what she says in the video, that that transition services is kind of like this added thing that the schools do to prepare special education students for the real world. And so they look at the individual, and they outline in their IEP, which they probably already have an IEP if they are a special education student. Then they outline, okay, the student is 14 to 22 years old, they're getting ready to graduate. These are the things that they need based on what their wants and goals are, based on what we feel we've assessed of them. These are the things they need to be able to prepare them to go to college, or to prepare them to do whatever work that they are destined to do in their post-high school career. So it's kind of like this outlined plan, and the school's supposed to do that and get this kid ready for the world. And so based on that understanding, in this segment, she's kind of saying, I'm gonna like a little bit and say that she's probably saying this because schools will just kind of go, okay, this is what they need, and put it down on their paperwork. You know what I mean? This is what Johnny needs. But she's saying that they actually need to include what the kid wants too, what their goals and their aspirations are for their whatever their post-college life is. So I've rambled, and sometimes when it's funny because when we're interpreting ASL to English or English to ASL, there's so much going on in our brain that we forget that the level of understanding that we just got to with that little bit of sentence is absolutely what we should aspire to every single thing that we interpret. And we just I just rambled for 2 minutes on my own, plus we had a little bit of discussion about it. That one little sentence, now we have an understanding about it, and we can go, oh, okay, that's how that could be better interpreted, because we have that deep of an understanding of that. We can't always achieve that deep of an understanding on every single thing that we interpret, but boy, is that absolutely what we're trying to do. So based on that understanding, and I kind of threw out maybe some good ideas too. What are you guys, I'll go back to Noemi. What do you think? Would you alter your interpretation based on what we just said?
Yeah, I think maybe I would include something along the lines of, I don't know what the right words aren't coming to me, but something along the lines of, we look deeper than, we ask deep questions as far as what the students' goals are, or something along the lines of that.
Okay.
Like what you just said, maybe that to make it clear that they are actually going to go and ask the student what they, or, you know, focus on the students' needs and goals.
Good, good. Any other ideas? So really just specifically voicing just that sentence. What's some way we could put that into a sentence? Cherise.
My thought was saying transition programs must include the student's vision and what their, I can't remember, what their goals are for college or the workforce.
Mm-hmm. That could be one way to do it, absolutely. Any other ideas? So we talked about college or the workforce. Is there a way to put that in one kind of nutshell? Not meaning that we don't necessarily have to, but can we? That idea of college or the workforce?
I think you just say like after they graduate high school.
So like post high school, yep. What their post high school plans are? You could put it that way. Let's get one more person's thoughts on this. Anybody else think they can put this in one complete sentence, and see if you can do it differently than Cherise's and Noemi's? Anybody? So what I'm thinking is similar. I don't have it written down here. I'm looking at my gloss, but something like the services, the transition services have to ascertain what the student's individual goals are post-graduation. It's something like that. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. I'm going to do one more with this video at 5:11. This is a really short, simple one. So now she's talking about the manual that that Disability Services has regarding transition services. And all she signs is, let me find you guys again. She signs, so that manual, okay. So I picked this one because it contains a sign that I see people voice a certain way all the time and should rarely be voiced that way. So I'm kind of trying to break that habit with a lot of people. So once again, she signs, that manual have many information, okay? it's a fairly simple sentence. Does anybody have any questions about the actual meaning of the sentence, what she means by that? Okay, I'm gonna pick on somebody who's been quiet so far. Maybe Jennifer. Any ideas, and you can pass, it's fine. Any ideas of how you might voice that sentence? Or do you want clarification on any signs or meaning or anything?
No, I understood the meaning. And I understand it's very positive. So the book is very informative. I think she's happy with what the book has to say. I don't have words for the sentence. And sadly, I didn't get to see this video.
Just 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So as you were just discussing the meaning of the sentence, you said something really, really great. And this is what happens when we start paraphrasing. We come up with some really, really amazing ways to voice things. So what you just said was, you said, well, it's clear that it's positive, and that the manual is very, very informative. Okay. Does anybody disagree that the manual is very, very informative? That sentence could be a fantastic way to voice that. Perfect. The manual is very, very informative. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. When we start paraphrasing, when we paraphrase, and I paraphrase a lot when discussing English and how to translate ASL, but paraphrasing even the ASL, it allows us to go, oh, that's what she means. It allows us to get rid of the words and go, oh, that's what that person means. And then we're able to come up with a really, really good interpretation that's not relying on the form that we're seeing. We're always, as interpreters, combating that desire to sign what we hear or say what we see, that following the form. But when we paraphrase, we go, well, all she's saying is that the manual has tons of information in it, right? And so that would be a great way to voice that. Yeah, good. Any other ideas?
Well, I was gonna say the same thing, but very informative, not very, very. But then as you were talking some more, it made me think about extremely informative.
Yes. So then we come up with we can play with synonyms. We said very, very, so we had 2 veries in there. We could use 1 very and emphasize it. The manual is very informative. Boom. So that we just took care of that. You could say the manual is extremely informative, and so replacing very with an even stronger word. We could even say something like the manual has an extraordinary amount of information, or I can't think of a word. There's probably an English word that's beyond my my pay grade that actually means very informative that I don't know of, but someone probably does. So if there is a great, $1,000 word that means that would be a great thing to put in there too. Anybody know a word?
My go-to was to say great. The manual has a lot of great information. I think that's just something I would naturally say. So it wasn't like, changed it up. It was definitely kind of matching the signs, but yeah.
No, all those are perfectly good.
My first instinct was to say crucial information, but then I don't know if that would match, because crucial I feel like means maybe a little bit more, or like critical, but I feel like that means maybe something a little bit more different than what she's saying.
I think it does add meaning, but I don't think it adds, in this case, I don't think it adds the wrong amount of meaning. So, I mean, I don't think you're adding something that she doesn't mean. In other words, I don't want everybody to leave here and think, when I can just say crucial, or I could say critical, because that's not going to always work. But in this case, if you watch the whole video, you'll see that the kind of information she's referring to is crucial, and she kind of emphasizes that quite a few times. So I think that in this case, crucial or critical or relevant or pertinent or one of those words could absolutely work there. Anybody else? Okay. We're gonna move on to the second video now, unless anybody has any questions about that first one. Okay, the second video is great. If you haven't got a chance to watch it, mainly because it'll actually allows you to do a little bit of assessment on your own acquisition of ASL and stuff. But what he's talking about is 3 challenges that kids have when they're acquiring ASL. And he talks about hand-shaped markedness, sympathy, and proximalization. Proximalization is one that I've struggled getting information on, and I keep hearing it, but I think he explains it really well. So if you haven't watched it, watch it. At 50 seconds, oh, this is a great one. He is talking about how parents, he's talking about how parents will sometimes see their child well, I don't want to say that. The lead up to this is him talking about those frustrations that parents have when they're watching their children acquire ASL. Okay, and then at 50 seconds, he says, okay, that's the whole sentence. Okay, I'll sign it one more time, but this time I'll gloss it. He says, sometimes specific skill will improve, do this, regress, get worse, worse and worse. Why? Don't. Like that, okay? So you can imagine deaf parents watching their beautiful deaf children picking up their first language, and then they see that happen. Like maybe their maybe their vocabulary acquisition is going up and they're getting all excited, and then all of a sudden they're like losing words that they sign every single day, and they're like, no, what's going on? But he's saying I don't want to say that. Okay, so clear what the meaning is? Okay, so what do you think he means? Let's just talk about it.
I think what he's saying is 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Like, don't worry. That's okay. What's going to happen.
Uh-huh. I like that. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Say that whole sentence the way you would voice it.
Okay. Language, the natural development for children picking up language, they may seem to almost master a skill and then go ahead and stumble over it while working on other skills. It looks like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but that's common and that's fine. And those kind of errors will take place. We expect them to during natural development.
Okay.
Too wordy, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yes, too wordy, definitely, but certainly it's the meaning. I'm going to sign it one more time, and I want us to just try to focus on just this sentence. I'll sign it with my voice off again. Okay. Anybody else want to try just voicing that sentence the way you would hope to voice it? Oops.
Something like sometimes parents will see kids regress in a skill that they've already mastered or start to regress, and then go on to say about that they not to, I think he says next something about not worrying, but that's natural.
What about the part about, do you think that the part about, could be in there? And if it
maybe put it as something about being worried, like sometimes parents get concerned when they notice their child regresses at a skill that they've already seemed to master.
Nice. Any other ideas? I think that got everything in there. Any other word choice options? There definitely are some, lots. So that one we talked about, sometimes parents get concerned. I like the word fret because I like to sound like I'm from the 40s. So you could use that word. Sometimes parents, or at times parents will see their kid regressing, their child, I like the word kid too, sorry, their child regressing when they've made some strides. And they'll fret about that. Or sometimes parents will fret about seeing their child regressing after making some serious strides. And we also, Jennifer mentioned the phrase 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I think that fits in here nicely too. So you could use that idiom and say something like maybe, parents will get frustrated when their child takes 1 step forward and 2 steps back on a certain skill, but he goes on to say that's natural. Yeah. So I like that idiom. I think that works well. Any other ideas? Or
would it be, oh, I'm sorry. Would it be okay to kind of like include it almost like at the end, like how he had, so say, sometimes children will regress in a certain skill, but parents shouldn't worry about this, and then continue. Is that?
Yeah.
Or, but don't worry if he's, depending, I guess, if you're speaking first person or.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that you did, which I think also works, is all of us, myself included, we're trying to put the improvement part in it, but you just said they will see regression, and regression implies that this was happening. You can't regress without this happening. So sometimes parents see regression on a certain skill, but parents shouldn't worry about this. Yeah, I think that is all you really need to convey that entire message. Does anybody think that we missed anything in there? And be honest, because sometimes I do. Okay, all right. Any other ideas before I move on to the last one? Okay, let's see. Let's do this fun one. So then he talks about, ooh, I like that one too. Let's do this one. He's talking about, he's talking about these 3 things. And the first one he's talking about is hand-shaped markedness, which he signs like this, by the way. So if you rewatch the video, when he signs this, he's talking about hand-shaped markedness. And he signs, so he starts off with fingerspells hand-shaped markedness and then signs. Then he continues and he signs this. Sorry. Take 2. Signs this. Okay, that's the whole thing. Okay, so he's just introducing his first topic, hand-shaped markedness, and he signs. Okay, and then just so you know, after that, he goes on to say, like, horse is an H, and play is a, so he goes on to explain the hand shapes of certain common signs. Okay, okay, so that sentence, just that section. How can we voice that section? And really specifically, what does he mean by this? Or how can we voice that in this context? Or is anybody confused about what in the world is going on here?
It makes me think of that, like, let me back up here for a moment. You know, kind of like, let me, something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Let me back up, and like he's gonna go explain, and then he realizes. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's actually what's happening. So he starts off with about to go into hand-shaped markedness, and then he realizes, well, let me just talk about what handshapes are first before talking about what markedness is. And so then he goes on to a pretty deep explanation about what handshapes are. So he realizes that before he needs to talk about handshapes, he needs to do this and talk, before he talks about markedness, he needs to go back and discuss handshapes, okay? So what was the phrase you used again, Cherise?
I said, let me back up a second, or like something like that. Hold on, let me back up, and yeah, that kind of phrase.
I like that. I sent an email to somebody about this earlier, and I'm just gonna find the words that I used in that email, just so that I have a few more things to contribute. Okay, does anybody have any other ways that you could say that?
I was just thinking.
Oh, wait, on my end, you're frozen.
Oh.
Wait, hold on. Okay, try again.
Okay, is it clear now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking sometimes as native English speakers, we're in the middle of a sentence, we're like, oh, so handshake markedness, oh, hold on. And then, we kind of just stop ourselves and we don't necessarily say it. Sometimes we do say it, let me back up, and that's very common. And sometimes we just say, like, oh, before I explain that, and then just explain.
And I liked your hold on, was great. Oh, wait, hold on. That's a great way to convey that. That's a great way to convey that. That is when we suffer the plight of sign, and you see this and you go, gosh, what do I need to say for this sign? We, instead of backing up and looking at the whole message gets you something as simple as, well, hold on. And that's such a simple way to convey that. Nice and brief. Not to say that Sharice's didn't work. Both of them convey the message equally. But Noemi's is just a much more concise way to say that. Any other ideas?
I thought maybe because he signed this, really I should clarify, or allow me to clarify.
Allow me to clarify. Allow me to clarify. That absolutely works. That absolutely works. Allow me to clarify.
As if he needed to better explain himself as far as what handshake marks are. Like he needed more of a definition before he went forward. Allow me to clarify.
I think that does work. Yeah, allow me to clarify, because it does seem like he realizes that he needs to clarify something. That's why allow me to clarify is a great way. Now, just to give you an idea of what I emailed to somebody today, I said, let's take a step back for a second. So that first one clearly was influenced by this sign, right? It wasn't this like, oh, just let me clarify, like just hold that thought or something like that. It was definitely influenced by seeing this sign, step back, let's back up. That's what influenced it. It wasn't incorrect, but it definitely, I didn't get to the point where I was totally away from form with that suggestion. Then I suggested, well, let me first say, okay, so that's a different way to handle it. Let me first say, and that's similar to the hold on, I think. Or I said, before we discuss that, and that was another one that was sort of more away from form. So you can see that all of the ones that we've discussed here are all successful interpretations. I think that I like hold on the best because I'm not the master of being concise. And so when I hear a great concise interpretation, I just think that really works for us. Especially as interpreters, we're always battling the clock, we're always battling time. So whenever you can get it out really quickly, it's always nice. And also being able to avoid form always lends us to potentially much better, much clearer interpretations. One big negative result of constantly filing form. Like in this case, my following form saying, let me back up for a second or something, didn't actually affect the message, but sometimes it actually can affect the message. And when we are only limited to what we see if our interpretations are only limited to what we see, then we are just completely limiting ourselves, rather than looking at what we see, opening up, really thinking about, gosh, what in the world does this person mean? And then all of a sudden, there's a world of possibilities that are at our fingertips for voicing options. Okay. Any final questions? Do you think this discussion was helpful? Okay, good. We're gonna be doing more of this in the next web voicing program.
I think it's nice to hear other people's, what they, because like stuff like that, it's like, oh, now I'll be, it kind of helps you think more outside the box, like, oh, that was a real, like, hold on, where now you can kind of play with that idea when you see other things like that. So it kind of helps to start that process.
Yeah, thank you for that. I agree. Cool, well, we'll do this more. Sandra?
Oh, I was just thinking that I probably wouldn't have said, hold on. I probably would have said, okay, let me explain. Or let me go back and explain that you have to use a handshake for every sign or something.
Yeah, definitely. I do. And I agree that hearing everybody's perspectives, because everybody gave really good perspectives and really different ones. So I think that it actually is really helpful. Cool.
However, I may consider using it in the future, though.
You should, yeah, exactly. We all should, exactly. Although keep in mind, I have to always add this little caveat: just because this sign in this context meant hold on, it's not always going to work. Not always going to work. Okay, so we don't want to like mentally associate the words hold on with this sign. Yeah, cool. All right, guys, thanks for coming. Have a fantastic evening and rest of the week, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye, everybody.